Hi, my name is Gutama, and today I'm going to present a PowerPoint slide on the topic Reframe Toxic Masculinity, the Roadmap to Healing. Before I like to start, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. I would like to first acknowledge that the land that I'm residing here in Canada is on stolen land. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Metis communities. I acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceable share and care for the Great Lakes region. The objective of today's PowerPoint presentation. Today, we're going to talk about toxic masculinity and get an understanding of what it is. What is healthy masculinity and what that means. Explore how experiences during childhood lead to the development of toxic masculinity, finding solutions to end toxic masculinity. Before I continue my presentation, just in case if anything I say or show on this slides cause a trigger, I just presented this trigger warning so you can seek extra support. Number one, you can call for male identified survivors. The number is on the screen. Number two, the Anger Management Center of Toronto, AMCT. The number is also on the screen. And also the Kids Help phone line. The number is on the screen as well. What is toxic masculinity? The definition that I like to come back to a lot of time is by teaching tolerance. They define toxic masculinity as a narrow description of manhood, designating manhood as defined by violence, sex, and aggression. It is the cultural ideal of manliness, which strength is everything while emotions are weakness, where sex and aggression are yardsticks by which men are measured, while supposedly feminine traits, which can range from emotional vulnerability to simply not being hypersexual, are the means by which your status as a man can be taken away. A masculine male is to provide, as they say, is to provide, protect, and be strong by not talking about your feelings. Don't get me wrong, being masculine is good, and we need those attributes as men. However, the problem comes when men need to be tender. You need to allow yourself to be human and don't stay stuck being a masculine male. Toxic masculine has a cultural order to teach men to only operate from a masculine frame in everything that you do. As men, we only fear this pressure to be men only. When you think of toxic masculinity, there really is nothing because masculine is an adjective. A man becomes toxic when he only allows himself to live under a masculine male attribute. This quote by Nelson Mandela is something that I always keep in the back of my mind. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. It is my opinion that this is how men should show up. Whereas suppressing your feeling, because suppressing your feeling leads to anger and depression. We are bombarded with images of male being the boss or having the ambition to be the boss, as well as perpetrating violence through the media, movies, in music. This leads to an implant of certain biases. We see these come out in the language that men use when hanging out with other men or when they are in a position of power. As a result, these stereotypes have become to identify male masculinity, whereas a masculine male is being constructed to be violent, aggressive, to never compromise their position, and to work from a place of ego. Young boys and men have all these messages thrown at them constantly, feeling the pressure to comply, or they will be ostracized. Question is, how do we identify toxic masculinity? Toxic masculinity is manifest in society by understanding the cultural context and how their family interacts. We need to dig deeper and more beneath the surface. We should not just look at it from a superficial level. The, this is why I believe toxic masculinity is trauma. Therefore, we need to understand childhood trauma. This is the slide presentation right now on the screen is showing the adverse childhood experiences. They're called ACEs. As you can see from the picture, a child can suffer from three main areas: abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual during the childhood; neglect, this is the other area, physical, emotional; or it's household dysfunction, whether it's mental illness, a family member is incarcerated, mother is treated violently, um, substance abuse, divorce. So basically, toxic masculinity is really formed from all these adverse childhood experiences. So, from the research study on ACEs, they show that these children developed a risk behavior as adults. The more ACEs that a child faces, the more likely it will lead to a downward spiral as an adult. So, again, this is the root of unhealthy masculinity. How do ACEs affect health? As you can see, through stresses. Frequent or prolonged exposure to ACEs can create toxic stress, which can damage the development brain of a child and affect overall health. So, a child will experience some or all these symptoms, from increased stress hormones, which affect the body's ability to fight infection, may have difficulty making friends and maintaining relationships, reduces the ability to respond, learn, or process effectively, which can result in problems in school. Lower tolerance for stress can result in behaviors such as aggression, checking out, and defiance. Problems with learning and memory can be permanent. Also, that it may cause lasting health problems, which lead to a reduced life expectancy. From the previous slides, we understand that masculinity is a learned behavior and is cultivated by all these different factors. As you can see from this slide, ACEs equal toxic stress. And stress can be broken down to positive, tolerable, and toxic. As you can see from the positive stress, normal and essential part of healthy development is a brief increase in heart rate and blood pressure, mild elevations in hormonal levels, example, taking a final exam, playoff game. So once again, one needs to remember that stress is not bad. Children actually need to learn from stressful situations to grow. The next stress is the tolerable stress. This is the body's alert system. It gets activated to a greater degree than the green levels. Activation is limited, but buffered by caring adult relationships. Brain and organs recover, example, death of a grandparent, car accident. So having that peer support there allows you to have similar memories that you can recover down the road when you experience some tolerable stresses in your life. The last red part is toxic stress. This occurs with strong, frequent, or prolonged adversity, disrupts brain architecture and other organ systems, increased risks of stress-related disease and cognitive impairment. Example, abuse, neglect, caregiver substance dependence, or mental illness. So stress becomes stress becomes toxic when it's frequent, chronic, and uncontrolled. Living with all these ACEs places the body in chronic state of stress. So as you can see, the green is pointing to social emotional buffering, learning skills, parent-child resiliency. Those are all the skills needed, and it pushes you back to the green level. Whereas if it's intense, prolonged, repeated, unaddressed, children or family vulnerabilities, limb supports develop delays. So it goes onward into adulthood. So in other words, red is basically survival mode. Learning isn't a priority in survival mode. So toxic stress creates toxic masculinity. This is one that, as a young man, you hear all the time. Stop crying, be a man. So, behavior toxic masculinity, which leads to number one, extreme self reliance, the need to do everything on their own, make it less likely for men to seek treatment or reach out for help financially. Number two is shame, disassociation, avoidance of emotional expression. Think boys slash men don't cry, leaving boys slash men with few acceptable emotions besides anger. Extreme aspiration for physical, sexual, intellectual dominance. And number four, devaluation of women's opinions, body, and sense of self. Five, condemning anything feminine with another man or equating affection for another man as being sexually attracted to the other man, resulting in higher social isolation and loneliness, lack of social cohesion. So these are a perfect example of the behaviors of toxic masculinity. Now, solutions. First, I put down having a male mentor. Finding the right male mentor to guide the young boy's life through adulthood. The goal is to cultivate a relationship that inspires growth and success. It's showing the young boy that feelings is not something you should suppress, it's something that you should embrace and have open discussions with someone that you care for and trust. The second solution piece, it has to do with the community. It needs to be a community approach. Provides an opportunity to gain an understanding from diverse viewpoints. So you shouldn't just learn from one person. It needs to be diverse. It needs to have different people, whether you're learning from grandparents, uncles, aunts, family, friend, neighbor. It doesn't matter. But just as long as there's diverse viewpoints, can help a person learn how to cope with their feelings. Next is narrative. This is where you convey the transforming nature of debunking the myth of masculinity. Have ongoing discussions to challenge certain beliefs. Here, this is when you see people talking about derogative terms or saying inappropriate things, not willing to have conversations regarding their feelings. This is where you have those narratives, those open discussions. Gender. This is to be open to have conversations with different gender identity and create a safe space for them to share their experiences. So this is where you don't close the door on nobody. You're here to listen to everyone's experiences um, and validate them. Allyship. This is where you organize people to bring about change, support other social justice issues that come to the forefront. Everyone has their own struggles, and in order to help yourself with your own struggles, it's a good idea to seek to help other people because it all can bring healing into your life. In summary, toxic masculinity is built up resentment and rage that is developed during childhood. Hypermasculine males must confront this trauma in order to heal and grow. Through this process, a man moves away from being toxic and learns to embrace their feelings as a source of strength and happiness. This is the end of my presentation, so I just want to say thank you. If you like this presentation or want to learn more, please visit forsaferspace.org. Thank you for providing me this time.